And now the news. A man who went to a physician with a certain pain explained that it was lessened on days when he had no dairy products and hadn't listened to the radio, and asked the doctor if that made any sense. To which the physician replied, "Hell, sir, nothing makes sense. It's just the news." One man initially believed that he had an intellect that would eventually lead him to the discovery and realization of everything secret that he wanted to know. But he now sees that what he possesses instead is a talking clown's head. But hey, I'd say any discovery is better than none. What do you think, hon? A boy asked a stranger, "What is the true cause of man's confinement?" "His belief that he suffers from confusion and uncertainty," he replied. And seeking clarification, the lad asked, "Did you say confusion and uncertainty?" "No," replied the stranger, "I said his belief that he suffers from such." But being as how the boy had laid this line of inquiry solely from his mind, he was not sure whether he understood the reply or not. And now for tonight's word regarding the question of justice. It always rains in La La Land whenever they need it. And a lad asked his dad, "How can you always be right?" "Easy. All you have to do is be a thinking human." It always rains in La La Land any time they need it. Whether you like it or not, men normally live two distinct lives. One is vertical and serious, if you consider staying alive. One is vital and serious, if you consider staying alive vital and serious. And the other frivolous and superficial, man's mental world. And enlightenment is little more than the full realization of this arrangement. And full enlightenment, the freedom to live by this realization. Shadows can only do what they're told to do. Same with thoughts. But no one knows the source of their directions. So it's best to just ignore them until more information is in hand. Your personal trainers, the Hold On brothers, just showed up for today's session and had the following to say. Said brother number one, "You've got to hold on to some secret word." Followed by brother number two saying, "You've got to hold on to a continuing awareness of your breath," which led to brother number three's remark, "You've got to hold on to some persisting mental image." It all climaxing with brother number four's declaration that, by God, sir, never mind the details, you simply got to hold on to something. How do you like how he called you, sir? Even if the ordinary mind was capable of true individual thought, it couldn't do so while operating via any plan, theory, scheme, design, or system. Any plan, theory, scheme, design, or system, be it religious, philosophical, political, scientific, or otherwise. And yet, that is the sole type of thought extant in the normal marketplace, and in fact is therein considered to be the exemplary approach to thinking. Some elder gray cells lodged in the head to some younger neurons said, "Though nourishment up here is an illusion, still, even with us, if you don't catch your own fish, you don't even imaginarily dine." If there is a difference between truth and reality, then it would be that truth becomes so by men saying it is, while reality simply is, with no comment required. Headline, I'm sorry, but this is how it is. If you look at life through thought, you'll always be confused. I'm truly sorry, but that's how it's lined up. A father so advised a son regarding that certain special matter. Once you fully realize the enormity of the challenge before you, there are two possibilities open to you. One is to collapse and give in. The other is to swell up the size of a Macy Days parade balloon and scatter hot air turds all over all that gets in your way. Spoken like a true mystic. Headline: glance over at the situation again, real quick, through here. Without the sensation of thought, there would be no I in you. And without the sensation of an I, there would be no one in you to experience the thinking. Simple, quick, and quite slippery. The prince's rhetoric tutor so touted him. All speech is fanciful and non-essential, unless its immediate sole purpose is to aid in physical survival. All? Inquired the prince. All, answered the professor. How then, asked the heir, do you come by your position of teaching such? Ah, well, I just happen to know this dirty little secret about your old man. Any more stupid questions, Your Highness? End quote. Since thought is driven by external circumstances, one's first step is to stop giving any attention to such conditions. The next step is a bit trickier, paying no heed to one's thoughts regardless of their source. Until you housebreak a dog, you cannot blame him for relieving himself indoors. But after that, what concern should a reasonable man have concerning where the canine does his business? For those off doing what they set out to do, to be on time for your fateful appointment is to become unaware that you have one, or for that matter, that you're anywhere at any particular time. Rather than fruitlessly argue about what is real and what is not, consider it in these terms. There is the silent primary reality in which man physically exists, and then a secondary reality which is the product of his mental activity. If you orient yourself for the moment on this basis, much needless confusion can be avoided and your sight clarified. Experiences, even of the extraordinary sort, eventually turn into thoughts. An alert man should be on watch for this and realize that one can have understanding, but without the freedom to use it. Some are slippery, some are hot. A man said to a publicly active mystic, "I can't understand why your teaching is not more popular than it is." To which he replied, "Well, I can't understand why it is as popular as it is." Moral: there's always something going on wrong, especially if you're moving your lips. And oh yeah, have any expectations. Everyone misunderstands what is said, the worst offenders being those who believe that they do understand. Every time it would rain, or he'd have a thought, one guy would mutter sarcastically to life, "Thanks for remembering me." In that secondary reality produced by the collective minds of men, permanency is not possible. And to not know this is to live forever dazed, confused, and always upset that things amiss can never seem to be made right. You cannot nail furniture to the floor in a hologram of a living room. Animated figures in a cartoon can be made to do anything but settle down and be serious. Something that doesn't exist to begin with, and thus lacks any capacity to fulfill real needs, can never somehow be changed or rearranged into anything satisfying. The true names of man's mentally created secondary reality are fluctuation, vacillation, unsteady, unpredictable, capricious, whimsical, and non-existent. And only fools and other forms of ordinary minds treat it otherwise. But, complains and whines a man, I want to see truth and reality. Very well, sir, come right over here and look. They're both written out right here on this very page. Look, right there, T-R-U-T-H and R-E-A-L-I-T-Y. Now you've seen them. Headline, okay, let's diagram the problem. You're only confused when you wander. Only thoughts wander. Okay, wasn't much of a diagram. That's not much of a problem. Headline again, another conversation overheard or overheated. Some people only experience human life collectively.
And who are these people?
Everyone save the awakened. Since when you understand something, you neither like nor dislike it, and since thought is based entirely on these two concepts, you see where this leads.
Well,
your part's over, sir. You had your day in the shade. Some claim that the only words God's ever spoken to man is, I am what I am, which, curiously enough, are the very words, should they say them to themselves, that could do them the most good. One man describes his possession's not what it used to be. Used to it was 9 points of the law, and now it's just an annoyance. So I guess call an exorcist who also has a law degree. One man describes his most recent attempt as that of trying not to let any of his brain activity turn into thought. That might bear watching. Freedom without understanding is nothing. Likewise, vice versa. Headline, the examination of systems to awaken and general notions of health care. Charts are good to follow the progress of the ill, but after one is well, of what use are they? The more specific you speak of a certain matter, the fewer there are people to hear it. Okay, people who can hear it. A boy asked his father, what kind of exercise would you recommend? And the elder replied, running vigorously from anyone who says that they have the truth. One man says he's decided that it may do well to treat trivial things as serious and serious things as trivial. A man on the way to both understanding and the freedom to use it should be ignoring that which is complex and obscure and be focused on the plain and obvious. For those in active pursuit of the great realization, there should be within them both a tautness and a laxity. One man's definition of the fully awakened is someone who went fishing and came back with himself. Those who've had deep dips of the direct tasting of life realize that mental-wise, they continually die and disappear over and over again. To be awake now, always intend to be awake just ahead of now. Another way to look at the two describable approaches, either be single-minded or infinitely minded, but at all costs not dual-minded. Headline, The Great Effort in the Wild. One way to stay awake is to keep a frozen snake in your shirt. To be of ordinary awareness is to totally misidentify what is serious. And lastly, one man's stance is that, quote, anything that talks shouldn't be listened to. In case I forgot to mention it, to remain asleep, dazed and confused, all that's necessary is that you continue to misidentify what is and is not serious. One more thing. You should immediately wash out your mind anytime you even think the word serious and you're not engaged in some life and death activity. To continue a bit with Dad, if you'll get a shot for the video. Won't you go ahead? Can you do that? And run a survey of it, and I'll talk a little bit of. But I was going back to using some of this, and it's my intersection drawn through the human nervous system, or the human nervous system, as per my little cartoonish symbol of it, superimposed on the intersection itself of a vertical and a horizontal line. I had now changed the terminology to describe it as a vertical mind, could have even said vertical consciousness, and a horizontal mind or consciousness. And to dig up some of my other past descriptions, I want to make sure it's plain that the vertical is the primary, it is the essential, it is the vital, physical existence of everyone. And we'll go ahead and call it a mind. It's a consciousness, since it's alive. It reacts to the environment, obviously, because that is what keeps us breathing and digesting food. And the horizontal mind is that strictly of the what men normally think of as the mental world, or physiologically speaking, it is the cerebral cortex. And also, in the past, I drew, if you recall, that kind of intersection, and I actually crossed them at the time, referring to the aspects of a person being more conscious or awakening or enlightenment, etc., as the actual activation higher up in the brain. But now that I am using it in a slightly different way, it would be actually more apropos to cut it there. Because what I'm trying to talk about now is not some super state of enlightenment or the satori, that experience that many people already know, have personal experience with, but more of an everyday continuing process of trying to do something apart from those extraordinary experiences. And in that sense, that if you're following me, if we take away, since I'll remember all this is just bullshit, just talking, but all of the so-called and assumed forms of this kind of activity throughout the past have always had two general descriptions. One being such things as satori, of being moments, of being those extraordinary moments wherein your state of consciousness, your awareness, all the routine dreams that people have of some kind of cosmic or extraordinary consciousness, there certainly is a reality to it, and it appears as though that you have actually just gone into some other state of mind, into some other realm of consciousness, and people who never go past that they have that one experience. It certainly, as they look back on it, as they begin to talk about it, write about it, it takes on more and more an otherworldly, exotic, esoteric, occult, metaphysical, New Age trapping. And so to them it does fit that experience is, well, the phrase blew my mind, that sort of thing. But past a certain point, if you continue after having one or even more of those experiences and realize finally on your own that is not the end in itself, and that you're still faced with the fact that you've got to live every day, and that was part of several of the news items tonight that pointed out that enlightenment, or in the news item it just called it understanding, that even of extraordinary understanding, even of you having had moments of that so-called satori that wipes out all your doubts, it changes forever the way that you see life. But with that kind of you understanding, if you do not have the personal freedom to use it, you understand that. You don't even have to be an Italian mystic to understand. If you don't have the freedom to use it, what good is it? Besides it having been an intellectual experience of an extraordinary nature. And so on that basis is why I was wiping out the above part now, because on a more constant basis of dealing with this, what you're trying to do according to my bullshit maps for the week is, rather than living in some area above ordinary consciousness on a day-by-day level, even though that you understand that, even though you've had the experience of being somewhere that seemed to be there, what you're really attempting to do according to this kind of temporary mapping is simply to free yourself from the horizontal mind. And so if you're following, it is no matter if you consider, which I've drawn in the past, that this to be the area of awakening, somewhere in the area of the brain not normally ignited and not used. Rather than that, look at it as just being freed from this, which you could see it as being the same thing, but for the sake of some practical methods that you might use every day, the change in the diagram is worthwhile. But what I was going to say was also to pull out some of my past description of a secondary and a primary. In the past I called them worlds, and tonight I put it in the news items as reality. But the vertical line, the vital, essential, vertical mind lives in, is a part of, let's just call it a primary reality. It is the vital reality. It is the reality in which we live and breathe. The secondary, the horizontal mind, that is man's, comparably speaking, is man's mental world, and is not essential and is not physical in the sense that it does not breathe, it does not eat, it does not digest food. It is an invisible world. It can't be touched. It can't be tinkered with. It doesn't get sick, regardless of what ordinary people think. And even if it does get sick, you can't fix it. You can't treat it. It's just there. It's just bodily functions in the brain which do not seem to have any gears or pulleys or wheels, and they can't seem to be oiled, and they can't seem to be readjusted or speeded up. Of course they can. That's what drugs and caffeine and stuff are for, but they can't be speeded up or slowed down or tinkered with on a profitable basis. No offense to you people who enjoy being drugged, but it does not accomplish anything. And all it is a function that does not seem to move, but it does make noise. It's a strange piece of machinery. It makes noise, but there are no moving parts. But the horizontal mind then produces what I am calling the secondary world. It is everything you cannot touch. It is the full world of civilization. That covers it. I keep talking around it, being concerned with people, civilians, newcomers seeing this at some time and trying to make some sense of it, but there's nothing else to say. That covers everything. If you can't touch it, it is the secondary reality. And I don't care what it is. It is invented. It is a product of something that doesn't exist. In line with that, I was coming by and I passed a Baptist minister with a sign on his head. No, I passed a Baptist church with a sign up front. No, I was listening to the radio, feeling like a Baptist minister coming over here looking for a topic for tonight's sermon. That's it. Or did I hit a Baptist minister when he was crossing this? There was an old line that just came out of it was some news, an old story, but it was something like this. It was a social commentator of some sort, and he was attacking intellectuals of a certain type, of proposing social and political theories that he was just absolutely dismissing, condemning, but just dismissing it as absurd. And he dismissed them, and his comment was this, very old comment, but here it was just a few hours ago in the national news. He says, talking about how ridiculous the idea was. The idea wasn't important, but it was some new scheme to do with taxes or redistribution of wealth or to reform society, that kind of thing. It was come from some professor in some college, some university. And so this guy, he says he condemns it and just was poo-pooing it in his comment. His quote was, "These people do not live in the real world." Which I knew all of you have heard that. It's an old story. It's 1,000 years old, but it continues. And you can see the basis of it, except it's ridiculous. Because they and everyone else do. The real world is the vertical line. It is the primary reality. So the notion is, the sentiment is ridiculous, and yet it's based upon a reality, the reality being that if many of these theories that the horizontal mind, see, because all theories come from the horizontal mind. The vital vertical mind, the survival instincts have no theories. None. Your body has never had a plan, a design, a scheme, a dogma, an agenda, other than being alive, but that's a given. To stay alive. It has no theories. It has no theories to remodel staying alive. It has no designs on how we might improve staying alive. None. So all theories, which already meet my definition if you remember, if you can't touch it, it's in the secondary world. It's imagination, but it's a secondary reality. It's the reason I was changing the term to reality instead of world, because people continually want to argue what's real, what's not, what ideas are real and that's not real. So I'll just take care of it. For those of you that are still playing around with yourselves and your mind, consider there are two realities. There's a primary reality and a secondary reality, and that takes care of everything. But what they're pointing out is that the horizontal mind continually comes out, somebody with theories that were they implemented would be detrimental. But notice this, as a rule, they're not implemented. And if they ever are, they stand out in history. They're considered to be calamities of a human nature, great wars and oppressions, and some madman gets some power. But notice, it is not a permanent, by any means, impairment. Who even knows whether life recognizes it, even notices it? But as horrendous as it seems at the time, no human can come up, no horizontal mind, that is, no human can come up with any theory, any plan, take any action that is going to disrupt life. It may disrupt other humans, but in far as life, realizing that there's some mad dictator has taken over country so-and-so, and he's killing all of his enemies and attacking his neighbors. If you may be there in the middle of it, and it may be horrible, but if you look up at the sky, and just consider life itself, or just look at the universe. It may upset humans momentarily, but it does not upset life. It is never a detriment. Humans cannot do anything detrimental to life. But what the person was pointing out, that these people, these theories, do not live in the real world. Now, you've heard that. Many intellectual people on this planet right now would find favor with that, would nod along and go, yeah, that's true. And it's ridiculous. And, I'm not just here to make a point about politics or social observers. I was always talking about the internal operations of man himself. For people to hear another human, and whenever people talk, they're talking from the horizontal mind. People are talking from an empty well. People are talking from la-la land, in case you didn't understand what I meant in the news item. La-la land is like, yeah. To me, la-la land, you know where Alice fell down that hole? That place looks sane next to la-la land, because la-la land is reality that you live in and you just don't see it. It is the world of Alice on drugs, Felix the cat on a bad day, Gulliver turned inside out. At any rate, we're not talking about social theories or politics, but you do know that someone accusing someone else, you understand if somebody says, well, listen to that guy's theories, listen to his ideas, he should get a life, he should get a job. People like that, I tell you their problem. These kind of people that sit up in academic towers and hidden away behind ivory columns and playing with their own noodly, these people, they come up with all these wild ideas about how to make things better. I tell you their problem. They don't live in the real world. And all of you listening to this are horizontally hip enough that you know what it means. And you've probably heard such and not along. Well, that's true. And it's a very common complaint with the ordinary people to the king, to the crown, to bureaucracies, of somebody in charge, the head wolf, always wanting to make changes that he doesn't have to put up with, the bureaucracy. The secondary world of man out there somewhere, after it becomes collective and becomes institutionalized, is they're always coming up with ideas about here's the way the rest of you should behave, here's the way the rest of you should live, here's the way you should think. And it's just according to time and place, whatever life wants. Sometimes it works. Everybody is a sheep in somebody's fold. Everybody's a cow in some herd. It's just that you don't like the sound of the herd that they're trying to organize over here, and that's when somebody says, well, I'll tell you the trouble with that damn bovine theory is those cow intellectuals over there, they don't live in the real world. And if it's some theory that seems foreign to you, you're not alone. Such as that there's some theory to live by that's superior to another one. Where are you going? Is rain superior to snow? That's not a good allegory. I was going to say is spit superior to... I guess we'll let it go. But to think that some theory to live by, to think that to be a Jew is better to be a Muslim, or to be a Muslim is better than to be a member of the Green Party, or to be a member of the Green Party is superior to being a socialist, or being a socialist is superior to being a member of the Loyal Order of Elk. To think that there is a theory, something that came from a man's mind, but notice if it comes from what appears to be collective sources, institutions, it always is simply the way things are arranged. It shows the gullibility, the inability to see of the human mind, because people can dismiss one guy on the street corner saying, here's the way we should live. And you can just laugh at it. 2 months later, 2 hours later, he can hear a pronouncement coming from the White House, from 10 Downing Street, from the Kremlin, from the Vatican, from Johns Hopkins University, from their med school. He can hear it coming from an institution. You never think about it. You think, well, there's much more wisdom there. How about you got one nothing, a human mind. You got one white rabbit, one Cheshire cat. You got one nothing. How is it you collect them all up, put them in suits, put them in a nice building somewhere, they hold committee meetings, they issue reports. Of course, I know that some of you are going to snicker already, but it goes on. This is the way life is. And people are, shall we say at least, much more inclined to give it a good hearing, at the very least. It's almost a rule that you can take an idea from one individual to another. Just have some guy keep coming with ideas until individual A hears individual B's ideas and gets the one, and individual A says, that's the worst idea I ever heard about how we should operate. All you got to do is give them time to forget about it. As I said, 2 months, 2 minutes. And then hand them a report that came from Princeton, University of California, from the White House, from somewhere, a Senate committee, a committee of eminent psychologists or sociologists, and show them the report, and it can recommend the same thing. He'll go, by God, that's the kind of thing we should do. Our society will be a lot better off. We need more information like that. It's like, I hate to be crude, but it doesn't cost any more. I was saying, one little nothing. It's like having, one little turd maybe, just one little ball of shit, and you think, I can dismiss that, and you pile them all together, and you put them in this big building, and you let them issue a report, and people are overwhelmed. They think, well, now we're getting somewhere. Now we have information we can use. We now have direction here in our country, in our society. Thank God for, and then fill in the blank, the government, the church, education. Thank God that there are people out there who know what they're doing. And yet individually, a scraggly wolf will oftentimes even snap at the head wolf. One-on-one. But when the head wolf, if he can come up with some kind of facade that looks like the International Wolf Institute and send out these little barking messages out the door, especially if you got a spokesman, a spin doctor to take it and come out, a press agent, people go, my. Well, back to wherever the hell we were. So the comment has been throughout the ages of one person being able to dismiss an idea, a theory about how men should live on the basis that these people don't live in the real world. And it's not just political, as you know. It's easy for one religion or one person who is not of a particular religious persuasion or some economic model follower, but say a religion, to turn on the religion and say, well, the ideas they've got about how we should live, they've got some religions foreign and got different rules of conduct, and they say, well, this is impossible. These people don't live in the real world. They don't know what's going on. And if you are in agreement with him just accidentally, you nod along as though he said something meaningful, as though there is some reality to the fact that there are people whose intellect is so, I don't know, they're so caught up in their own theories, their own wild schemes, that they don't live in the real world. Where the hell do they live? The real world is where everybody lives, the vertical line, the non-thinking line, and that prevails. Another thing they're pointing out, which is an absolute waste of time, all they're pointing out was, if theories that would upset the orderly flow and existence of life were implemented, they would interfere with the orderly, persistent flow of life, but they don't. So what the point? Why would anybody point it out? Why does it strike people as being meaningful? That by God, that's true. All theories, in that sense, if those people actually had any ability to think, all theories, forget whether you agree with them or not, all ideas, all talk, doesn't live in the real world. Don't pick on the spokesman. Don't pick on the human that came out, opened his mouth in some theory, some idea came out with which you disagreed, and say, well, this person, rather than do an ad hominem on him, you make it sound as though you're more of an intellectual critic. And so you say, well, that's a fine, fanciful, flowery sounding theory. But people like that, they don't live in the real world. Rather than attack the person, I am telling you, any theory, any idea, any word, and of course one word doesn't make much sense, but any idea that comes out of a human's mouth, the idea itself, forget the human, because they just open their mouth. They're just a radio with a cheap speaker. As you look at the idea, you look at what is said, that doesn't live in the real world. It's the theory. Not any particular theory. Don't be particular. If you get particular, you'll miss the whole thing. Is any theory doesn't live in the real world. That's why it is the secondary reality. That's why it is subject to criticism. Nobody ever criticizes the body as not living in the real world. No one ever turns to another human and accuses in some way from the horizontal line down, from their vital energy, from their actual physical vital essence, just their body. No one ever accuses anybody else's body of not living in the real world. And that's the only thing that does live in the real world. In other words, they're making accusations that are as baseless. Even I'm about to jump on, or not jump on, I'm about to push off a merry-go-round that's going to go faster. You want me to do this? It won't hurt. For verbal criticism to be directed at other ideas is as baseless as, did you hear me? I told you it was fast. All right, I'll repeat it. It's as baseless as if you consider the way I cut off the line, and I was going back to where I never got to the other night, is rather than look at it as being an extraordinary state of consciousness on a day-by-day, minute-to-minute basis, you would have a completely different internal sense of being alive. Your whole sensation of existing is different if you'll listen to that. If you could listen to the vertical mind and ignore the horizontal. Not even any direct attempt to do anything extraordinary. Not any attempt to stop thought, to throw yourself into some kind of extraordinary state. Because the vertical mind, even though it does not talk, it speaks. It does not talk with words, but you can listen to two. You're listening to two constantly, which is the radical basis of all the ideas that men have of being or living a dualistic life. That there is either some good part, some evil part, some conscious mind, some subconscious mind, all of that. Or the idea that you can live with for a long time. Even if you don't analyze it in any of the terms that I just used, but the idea, the accepted assumption that there is more than one of you of some sort. Because there is in everyone some you of which you approve. And people involved with this, of course, the one in which they approve unconditionally is the one that wants to awaken, to achieve enlightenment. But as far as everyone's concerned, they never even think of it this way. For me to say, as far as they're concerned, there's more than that one, to say that to ordinary people involved with, anybody involved with this, they immediately would, their first reaction would be, well, what the hell are you talking about? Of course there's more than the one, because if I was just the one that wanted to be more conscious, that wanted to awaken, then what the hell, I'd be awakened. What's the point? Because it's not just me in there, the good me. Well, everybody says that. As I said, even ordinary people, any person, any sane person on this planet no matter what they call it, believes that there is more than one of them. They may want to call it last-ditch effort, I guess it would. No, they wouldn't. They just believe that there's more than one of them. They assume, they accept, they think, they live up here. Now, they don't live down vitally. They don't live in the vertical world. They don't live in the primary world this way. But in the secondary world, they operate on the basis that neither they nor anyone else is one person. The secondary world would not operate. It would freeze up. Society would become rigid and stop. Part of the lubricant that keeps this invisible world operating and that keeps men being able to live together collectively is this unstated, unanalyzed belief, assumption, acceptance that each person and everyone else is more than one person. If it were not for that, you could not forgive. You could not tolerate other people. You'd be hard-pressed to tolerate your own family. Once you have a horizontal mind, you have less tolerance were it not for this assumption that we all consist of more than one. If were it not for that, and you had a horizontal mind, humans would be less humane, even to their own children, to their family, than would be other mammals, maybe even reptiles. Because without this belief, you would have no tolerance. I do feel like a Baptist preacher now. In a Methodist church, empty, on a Tuesday night. Once you have a mind in your ordinary, once you have a horizontal mind, you then have what amounts to literally two minds operating. One talks, one doesn't. One is essential, one is not. One is, well, that covers it. And so you have this sensation. Were it not for this sensation, people would have no tolerance for one another. They would hold one another immediately, continually, absolutely, immediately responsible for everything they do and say. A parent would turn to a child one time and say, "Don't throw food." And 2 minutes later, when the kid threw food, you'd probably kill him. You'd probably revert to, forget these two minds, to reptile mind. You'd probably turn around and bite his head off like an alligator. You would have no tolerance. You would hold people responsible. I told you to do that. Now, I grant you, I started off with an extreme example. But I was trying to show you that, which is probably late in the tape to start getting this complex, that the very thing that civilizes people, the very thing from one view that makes man superior, in a social sense at least, but superior to other creatures, is the horizontal mind. And yet if you can see it outside of so-called space and time, sequential reality, which is secondary reality, because primary reality has no sequence. It just is. But the very thing that seems to make man superior and makes him civil is the very thing that were it not that can make him less civilized, if you can get behind and look at it. In other words, a gorilla, an orangutan, a cougar would have more tolerance for its young, teaching it apparently to do something. To not eat this, not bother me when I'm asleep, don't try to suckle me if it was a mother when I'm asleep or when I'm leaving the cave, the den. But they let it go on and on. And so I was going to say, if you can follow this, although it doesn't operate this way, but humans having a mind and therefore appear to be superior to all those creatures I just named, having the mind, the horizontal mind, a talking intellect, if they just had that, without the sensation of having two minds, or there being two of everybody inside, they would not be more civilized. They would be less civilized in one sense because they would have less tolerance. Because now if they can speak, they would turn around to their child and say, "Don't bug me when I'm walking out the door." And they'd say it one time, and the next time, when the kid come up and bugged you, you'd lash out at him. But instead, as I said, this is not analyzed, but instead of that, nobody ever thinks about it. You take into account not only your children, but everyone else in the world. Just according to what kind of relationship, of course, you have with them, and what sort of profit motive or what kind of hostile motive you may have as to the degree of this tolerance. But we all have this tolerance with one another, that you don't hold everybody else responsible absolutely for what they say or do. And you do it on the basis that everybody's not the same person. You tell an employee, if you're a boss, you say, listen, you've got to be here on time. I pay you money. The store opens at 9. I want you here at 9. The guy says, yeah, you're right. I'll be here. And so he's here for 2 or 3 days on time, and then he's not. You ask somebody to do something for you. You tell somebody to do something, they say they will, and then they don't. And there's always an excuse, and it doesn't have to be that extreme. You may not even ask for an excuse. It comes in late again, a few nights later, a few days later, and you're standing there, you look at the clock, and you look at him, and he looks at you. And if some of you want to keep him, again, it's the degree of which the closeness of the relationship or the necessity of the circumstance, you'll let it go, but you let it go on this basis. You don't think about it, but you let it go on this basis that none of us, you might say, are perfect. But what you're saying is that none of us are of one mind. That if this employee's name is Sam, then what you're saying is there's not one Sam. There's a good Sam. There's a Sam that, by God, he's one of the best employees I ever had. Really, he is. But he's got these few things, like he's inclined to be late. And I'll talk to him, and I know he means well. I mean, the Sam, the one I know, and he'll say, yeah, you're right. I oversleep. Sometimes I'll stay up too late. I'm lazy. And I go, Sam, do better. And he goes, I will. And I know damn well when he stands there and looks me in the eye and he says, boss, I will. I love this job. I'm sorry. I know you need me. I'll do better. I know he means it. But you also know that 2 or 3 days later, even 2 or 3 hours later, 2 or 3 minutes later, there can be another Sam. Because sometimes he's kind of lackadaisical. When he's good, when he's the good Sam, when he's on the ball, he's the best employee. You wish you had 100 like him. But, you got to put up. But you know what that's saying? That's the way people excuse their own behavior or explain it in life. That's how people claim that they are living by some theory, some scheme. That's how people can say, yes, I am a Buddhist. Well, how come I see you swatting flies? Well, hell, I'm not perfect. If there was not the sensation that there were 2 of you, at least, in you, not only would you have no tolerance for anyone else, you couldn't tolerate yourself. You are listening as it is now. Everyone is. You are listening to 2 sources of energy. One is vital, primary. One is secondary. And for someone involved with this, you'll finally find out, is actually non-essential. Or to put it in my more scientific terms, it is all bullshit and doesn't mean anything. Literally. Anything that's said, unless, I'll always, if you need me to, I'll point out the one exception. If it is a matter of life and death, immediate survival, all talk is bullshit, as the rhetoric tutor told the prince tonight in a news item, unless its immediate sole purpose is for survival. The only talk that is not frivolous, superfluous, meaningless bullshit is if somebody says, watch your step. Or, hey, get out of the way, it's falling. Or don't stick your head in there. Other than that, the rest of it is bullshit. It is Alice in Wonderland. It's La La Land. It's nothing. It's noise. Collectively, if you're part of the horizontal flow, if you're part of the secondary world, nowadays, the more you're in it, of course, the more it will seem to be of importance. And I'm not here to tell you it's not. No one can tell an ordinary person it's not. The more you live in the secondary world, by its own definition, or by my description just now, the more you live in it, the more important it is. The more civilized you are in that sense, the less you find the life of the body, comparably speaking, is of less importance than the world of the mind, the world of thought, the world of ideas, politics, religion, philosophy, discussion. If you ever quit listening to it, if you can, well, If you can quit listening to it, if you can stop the energy from being carried along by the horizontal flow, you simply see it's meaningless. The very things that seem to be of supreme importance, including this, any talk about it, there may be some reality to it, I'm not saying that, but all the talk about it, all of that is bullshit. That once you see it, it might as well be the diagrams of how the Oilers lost 4 straight games in '69 at the beginning of the season. Or it could be, here is how Wellington not only made a fool of himself on the battlefield, but just came up with that horrendous dish of his made out of beef. It could be scribbles. They mean the same thing. Rather than waiting again, or for the first time, for these moments of satori, you can quit listening to that. You can take that approach rather than just trying to stop it or trying to figure it out. You can quit listening, and there's still something to do inside. It's foreign, because to ever think, you have to have this horizontal mind to ever be human. And so it's not like you made a mistake. It's now you have to, in a sense, I hate to put it this way, I was going to say back up, but it's not really backing up. But it's not trying to stop this, and it's not on the basis that I made a mistake doing this. You had no choice. But listening to this is not the only thing that you can do inside your head, because there's this energy continue running up, which actually fuels this. And it gets up to here. That's why I cut off that line. If you can stop it there, it won't fuel this. I put in a hint. The horizontal mind breathes from the head. You know what breath represents? Life itself. The horizontal mind breathes from the head. The essential, the vertical mind, breathes from the sole of your feet. Or do you remember I was talking about the little man? It's like the mind, what the ordinary flow of thought is. This guy, this guard that's off duty, and he's over there in that barracks just pacing the floor. And I said you could look at this, like where the cerebral cortex is, the horizontal mind is being the floor, and there's this guy pacing, the horizontal mind. Just on and on and on, just so he's there on duty in case somebody has to say, watch it, don't stop there. And he goes, hey, or the house is on fire, you got to get out. And the body could feel as though it's trapped, and the mind goes, wait a minute, let's see, I'll tie some sheets together. There it is. The horizontal mind finally earns its due. But the rest of the time, it's like just this guy pacing. He can't leave the base. He can't leave your skull. He's off duty. So another way to look at it is, because I'm going to put words on it and you can't do it, but you can start with words, is have this feeling. I'm going to stay down here beneath the floorboard. That's to yourself, me. Instead of going up there and fooling with him, even being around him, I think I'm just going to kind of stay down here beneath the floor.